Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are in Isaiah chapter 60. So these last six chapters, kind of winding down of the prophecy of Isaiah, keep this in mind. These prophecies were 700 years before Jesus' birth, 100 some years before the fall of Jerusalem. So the prophecies, as I said numerous times, are so relevant and pertinent because it established. We know that Isaiah, the documents of Isaiah 700 years prior, the writings of Isaiah, okay? So, and then as you track the prophecies, you're able to kind of locate, put yourself in from a prophetic timeline. So, and then also we also get the um, as we have been going through. If you remember when we started in the section of the writings of the prophets, we said let's do it in a chronological order. That is, so we went back through some of the what's called the minor prophets. So there were prophets that kind of showed up, a few years, maybe 100 years before Isaiah, and they showed up 100 years before Isaiah and began to prophesy um, things that, um, uh, in other words, the prophetic voice from Isaiah's perspective, the prophetic voice. I think what I'm going to do is I haven't done this in a while. Um, I'm going to pull up. Um, I'm looking for it now so you can see. But so again, because we're winding down, and as we go from Isaiah to Jeremiah, again, it is a different time period. So let me bring up my screen here. Now, you all have seen me use this before, and this is kind of an approximate timeline of the Bible. Um, so if you kind of go back, you'll see the very first thing is the beginning of the word, and then 4,000 years, you go back to Genesis 1. In terms of the story of the creation, that's a timeline. And then as you can kind of get an idea, this is just an idea. So when we get all the way down to where we are now in Isaiah, the the section of the book of Isaiah, you remember, starts a prophetic voice, a prophetic countdown. And there are two things that need to kind of understand about the countdown. The one first countdown is to the Babylonian um, exile, the invasion of Nebuchadnezzar. And that's important because that changes the course of human history. We go from um, you could say mighty empires such as the Assyrians, Egyptians, to world dominating empires. So Babylon is the head. It is a world dominating. I'll get more into that, in the upcoming prophecies. So that and it's important. This is why as we're reading and going through, and I said I started with I didn't read Obadiah, and as you can see here, 853 BC, Obadiah, and now I'm putting that later only because, and I think I told you the times of controversy as to the arguments of when Obadiah prophecy is dated. But look at this, 835 BC, Joel prophecy, and then 790 BC, Amos. 760 BC, Jonah. 753 BC, Hosea. And so now we're in Isaiah, and now we're coming to the end of the book of Isaiah. Then we're going to get into Jeremiah, which, as you can see, Jeremiah is going to be somewhere around the neighborhood of 627 BC, but I'll get into that later. But as you can see right here, 700. Now, what's important, of course, is where we at 700 and around 700 BC. Then you have you have where am I at here? Isaiah, Hezekiah's prayer, and then just a few short years after that, the Babylonian exile. All right, so let's get into our study. Isaiah chapter 60. It says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, for the glory of the Lord shines over you. For look, darkness covers the earth, and total darkness the people. But the Lord will shine over you, and his glory will appear over you." So who is he talking to? Again, Israel. These prophetic promises are to Israel. It's extremely important, especially when you get into future prophecies such as Matthew 24, Revelations, okay? Always keep in mind that the prophetic flow is consistent, it's continual. And so, in other words, we know what he's talking about because he's clearly stating it here in the book of Isaiah as well as the Old Testament prophecy. Verse 3 says, "Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your radiance." He says, "Rise." Now notice again. So when in verse 3, when he says, "Nations will come to your light, and the kings to the brightness of your light." So who is he talking to? He's talking to Israel. There's coming a time when this will happen. It is certainly not today. Verse 4, "Raise your eyes and look around. They all gather and come to you. Your sons will come from far away, and your daughters will be carried on the hip. Then you will see the radiant, and your heart will tremble and rejoice, because the riches of the sea will become yours, and the wealth of the nations will come to you." Now, let me just say this, because you see, well, this is a future prophecy, and all of the events mostly are from a future perspective. So you have to understand that with Babylon, there was this exporting of the Jews, the exiles, as they are called. And from the time of Babylon, most of the Jews never came back to the land. So what is referred to as a remnant came back to the land. Okay, a remnant came back to the land. So, um, 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 uh, the prophecies of Israel then eventually coming back to the land, occupying the land. Okay, uh, uh I think misinterpretation of it is 1948. That when in 1948, when the Jews went back to the land, they occupied the land and became a nation. So tonight, since 1948, then you can say Israel has been the nation. Some people see that as a fulfillment of prophecy. I do not. Now, the reason why, and there's several reasons why, but one, the people who occupied the land in Jerusalem, are they the descendants of Abraham? So that's a question. I don't know. So I'm only asking the question. Secondly, those who occupy the land, then the nation of Israel, is it a nation? First of all, it's not a sovereign nation. So therefore, it cannot be the fulfillment of prophecy, because when, as these prophecies in Isaiah and other Old Testament prophets are fulfilled, Israel will be a sovereign, freestanding nation. So even when they went back to the land after the 70-year exile, they still was under the rule of the Medes and Persian, the Grecian, the Romans. And so even now, if you want to say that Israel is the fulfillment of the in 1948 is the fulfillment of them coming back to the land. Again, there's several things wrong with that. One, they still are not, in a sense, a free sovereign. They don't occupy all the land. The nation itself is a very secular nation, a very progressive secular nation. So they're not even following God. As you can see here, that the statements are clear as to how you will know that Israel coming back to the land is an actual fulfillment of these prophecies, that they will be following God. Notice he says that people will see the radiance of Israel. There's a lot of turmoil, right? You got this war going on where some people hate the nation of Israel, and so forth and so on. And again, you can even say, are they even a sovereign nation? Are they a godly nation? They're not. They're a secular nation. There is the Orthodox Jews, of course, but for the most part, the nation itself is a very progressive nation. So this is why I say this is not a fulfillment of the prophecy here. This is yet to come, and when it comes, all these things will be evident. Verse 6 says, caravans of camel will cover your land. The camels of Midian and Ephah, all of them will come from Sheba. They will carry gold and frankincense and proclaim and praise and proclaim the praises of the Lord. So again, since 1948, where have people done that? Certainly in America. Certainly there's certain ministries that have done that, but I'm saying, notice he said these nations. Verse 7, all of the flocks of Kedar will be gathered to you. The rams of Nebaioth will serve you, and go up on my altars to acceptable sacrifice, and I will glorify my beautiful house. Now, the term house is going to be very interesting, because what does he refer to house? Well, in the Old Testament, the house always referred to the temple. It always referred to the temple. Never referred to the church or buildings, but the temple. Verse 8. Who are these who fly like a cloud, like doves, to their shelters? Yes, the islands will wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish in their heads, to bring your children from far away. Okay, and their silver and gold with them, for the honor of the Lord your God and the Holy One of Israel, which glorified you. So again, who are the ones that are coming from afar? Who are the ones that are coming from afar? It's Israel. Notice he said they will glorify you. So in the um, uh, in the final, you could say the final glory, then the final glory. Notice what God is going to do in the final days, the glory. Notice what God is going to do. Who are these who fly like a cloud, like doves to their shelters? Yes, the islands will wait for me, with the ships of Tarshish in the lead, to bring your children from far away, and the servant of gold with them, to honor the Lord your God and the Holy One of Israel, who has glorified you. Foreigners will build up your walls, and their kings will serve you. Although I struck you in my wrath, yet I will show mercy to you with my favor. So again, this is a prophetic voice right here. This fulfillment of this is just 100 years over, and from our perspective, we're going to get to the book of Jeremiah. Whew, it will be rough. It'll be a rough read. Okay, verse 11. Your gates will always be open. They will never be shut day or night, so that the wealth of the nations may be brought into you, with their kings being led in possessions. Now, this is a very profound prophecy here. In the book of Revelations, we see a glimpse of the new Jerusalem, and it's talk about its gates, which are made of one big giant pearl. The city itself is described as 144 miles square, with 3 gates on each side, so 12 gates. And notice he said they would never be shut by night. Now, the symbol of them here is that there won't be any war, there won't be any threat of invasion. Okay, and then he said, so that the wealth of the nations will may be brought into it. And here's the interesting thing. So there's two ways of looking at this. That one, is this the millennial reign of Jesus, or is this the eternal age? For which, as you can see, if it is the eternal age, that is interesting in that there will always be people here on earth in some kind of capacity. Now, if it's a millennial reign, then that's another story uh, that is kind of brought out in Revelation chapter 20, verse 12. For the nations and the kingdoms that will serve you, that will not serve you, will perish. Those nations will be annihilated. Now, I favor more the millennial reign picture here. The Bible tells us that Jesus will rule with a rod of iron. In other words, sternness. So now he gives this thing right here and said that if a nation does not serve you, it will be annihilated. Very interesting. Verse 13, the glory of Lebanon will come to you, its pine, firs, and cypress together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will glorify my dwelling place. The sons of your oppressors will come and bow down to you. All who rival you will fall face down at your face. They will call you the city of the Lord, Zion, and the Holy One of Israel. Instead of you being deserted and hated, with no one passing through, I will make you an object of eternal pride, a joy from age to age. You will nurse on the milk of nations and nurse at the breasts of kings. You will know that I, Yahweh, am your Savior and Redeemer, the Mighty One of Jacob. I will bring gold instead of bronze. I will bring silver instead of iron, bronze instead of wood, iron instead of stones. I will appoint peace as your guard, and righteousness as your ruler. So again, we certainly what we see what's going on in Israel today, that this is not a fulfillment. Okay, but it is something of a hope that one day you could actually live in peace and righteousness. Verse 18, violence will never again be heard of in your land. Devastation and destruction will be gone from your borders, but your name in your walls, salvation in your gates, praise. Now, again, what a promise, right? What a promise. Verse 19, the sun will no longer be your light by day, and the brightness of the moon will not shine on you, but the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your splendor. Now, verse 20, I'm flip-flopping back and forth here, that is this the millennial reign of Christ or the eternal age? The reason why I say that is because if you look at this verse of scripture here, clearly you go to Revelation chapter 21 and 22, and this is the picture that you get right here of the eternal age doing the new heavens and the new earth. Verse 20, the sun will no longer set, and the moon will not fade, for the Lord will be your everlasting light, and the days of your sorrow will be over. Then all of your people will be righteous, and they will possess the land forever. They are the branches I planted, the work of my hands, so that I might be glorified. And the least will become 1,000, the smallest a mighty nations. I, Yahweh, I will accomplish it quickly in this time. So, like I say, very interesting, because when we read the book of Revelations, we see both the um, we see both the fulfillment in the millennial reign perspective, but also in eternal age perspective. But all right, guys, um, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.